As more companies double down on sustainability, our next guest is looking to expand the mobility ecosystem. Vontier is a global industrial technology company comprised of 8 operating companies, all focused on capitalizing on this evolving technology. Mark Morelli is Vontier's CEO and president. He joins us now. Mark, thank you for being here. For those who are not familiar with Vontier, sort of looking through your different business lines, you have a tools business, you have a car wash technology business, you have a charging station business. Help us understand Vontier.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So Vontier has products and technologies that touch people just about every day, perhaps every week, except they may not realize it. Whether you're dispensing gas or fuel, or whether you're a fleet manager and you've got trucks that you have to operate, it's about refueling operations, but it's more than that too. It's about this energy transition, because we are a leader in dispensing liquid natural gas, renewable natural gas. We're very well positioned in the hydrogen infrastructure, and we're a leader in electric charging networks as well. So we touch so many parts of this, what we call the mobility ecosystem, where we provide the products that move people, products, and goods, all connected by the roadway.
What would you say is the current status of the clean energy transition?
So I think the energy transition is really what some folks are referring to as the energy trilemma. And of course, it's about sustainability, but it's also balancing cost and accessibility of energy as well. And it's the balance of all three of those. And I think that a company like Vontier, since we're so deeply embedded into this mobility ecosystem, that we're very well positioned to be able to help the sustainability of existing infrastructure around petrol to diesel, but more importantly, also about the energy transition and new forms of energy.
And if I'm not mistaken, you guys, a lot of your business is in Europe, correct? So how are you comparing what we're seeing in the United States versus what we're seeing there in terms of this transition?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because you see other areas of the world that are making progress in certain areas, one of which is in electrification that, of course, everybody's talking about, and the reliability of the charging infrastructure is a big area where we're involved with. We provide operating system software for charge point operators. And so you look at Europe, where we have a strong presence, and globally, we have about 40,000 plugs under management, which is one of the leading networks in terms of size and scope. And there's tremendous lessons in Europe, because they're selling more electric vehicles. There's more cars on the road that are electric vehicles. And in the Nordics, we have about 80% of the charging networks under management with our Drive software today, and that's on a rate of doubling every year. And it's about providing that reliability, providing an interoperable software that is very simple to use. And so I think there's a lot of lessons for other areas that have penetrated electric vehicles more than the U.S.
At what point, even within the solutions that you currently offer to the market and the growth kind of pipeline or even pathway that you're communicating to investors right now? I mean, I'm looking through some of the recent results here, the decline of adjusted operating profit, 4.1% versus the year prior, operating profit margin decreasing by about to 20.9%. What is kind of a standard base that you believe investors can expect and anticipate on some of those margins, and where that growth profile really can move the company forward towards?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because when you look at the top line numbers, they don't necessarily read through, because there was a large secular driver that we're comparing a prior year that we're now through. And this is where folks were, you may know this, when you went to go pump gas, and you used to have to swipe your card, and now you have to insert your card in the chip reader. This is called Euro MasterCard Visa regulation for security, and this caused a big upgrade in the overall business. And now we're through that, and now the year-over-year compares are not as good. But more importantly, when you look at what we call baseline numbers, our baseline organic growth grew 9% last quarter, and our baseline operating margin expanded 230 basis points. And this is really indicative of the potential there. Not only are we getting price, but more importantly, we're getting volume out of that. And so when you look forward in the business, we're saying this is a mid-single digit growth business, expanding operating margins, and we see that as sustainable because there's a lot of investment going into this mobility ecosystem. And I think when you see and investors see this read through, I think they'll understand how undervalued the company is.
When you look 5 years from now, what is the EV charging landscape going to look like? I mean, right now there are a decent number of players who are trying to get in, but here in the U.S., obviously Tesla has made inroads in terms of its agreements with the other automakers. Does it look like a gas station or a petrol station, I guess, in Europe ecosystem where there are a lot of different brands? Do you think it is more of a duopoly or a trilopoly? Like, what does that look like?
I think you see a lot of folks getting into the charging game, whether it be a destination for charging, let's say a convenience store obviously is a stop along the way, or it's called on the go. But destination charging might be where you stop to go shopping or at your office building. And all these folks play a role in providing this infrastructure. So there's easy accessibility as well as it's a high reliable charge. You know, charging your vehicle is not necessarily like filling up with a tank of gas. You try to manage that between 20 and 80% of the charge, and it takes a lot longer. And so 5 years from now, I think you see much more pervasive across where folks touch almost every day when they're out, not only in their home. And there's a lot of charge point operators that have value propositions there, and they want to own that customer experience. And this is exactly what our software provides. It provides this interoperability, high reliability charge, and a simplified experience for consumers.
And a faster one too, right? I mean, charging
absolutely
takes a little bit more time than just filling up the tank, but something hopefully that we can kind of narrow the gap on over these next few years, and a little bit more innovation as well. Some of that coming from your company, Mark Morelli, Vontier CEO and President. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.